Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Here we go again. Chicago police facing questions after a chase was given of an armed robbery crew late last week, Wednesday actually. And this was on the northwest side. And the police gave chase, and then they were called off the chase. Why? And this armed robbery crew was out and about hitting a lot of people.
Wreaking havoc. They are, 20 places in 14 minutes or something like that? They're out of their minds. Using long guns and, I don't know. They had them right there and they let them go, and people in the neighborhood are furious.
Furious at who, for why, I guess is the question. John Garrido, former Chicago Police Lieutenant in the 16th District, joins us now. He's also the president of the Garrido Stray Rescue Foundation. GarridoStrayRescue.org is that website. That's where I got my dog.
Yeah.
At the GarridoStrayRescue.org Foundation. So just in the interest of full disclosure.
Thank you.
John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on again.
Morning. So why'd they get called off, and should they have been called off?
So, you never like to Monday morning quarterback, especially for me, for officers, but it's a balancing test. But our department policy has evolved over the years to really, really make it restrictive for officers to chase at all. There's been so many incidents where the chases have ended in horrific traffic accidents where civilians have gotten hurt. So they really lean toward trying not to chase. But it's still they do still give discretion, and they've left it open to it's a balancing test of weighing the need to catch them for with public safety. So if this was happening at 5 o'clock in the afternoon during rush hour, people are getting out of work, kids are home from school and out playing and things like that, then that would definitely be much more likely that you would terminate that chase a lot sooner if their speeds are reaching high speeds or massively reckless driving. In other words, the guy's blowing lights and he's going up on the sidewalk and whatnot. But it could be argued that at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when nobody's out and the street's pretty clear, that probably be the time to allow a chase to continue, chasing a carload of masked armed.
Well, can you walk us through that night? What happened? Like, where did this crime spree start, and why? Where were they when they called off the chase?
Right. Well, so from what I understand, it was not too far from Devon and Western. It was in the 20th District, a little west of there. And it looks like there was a couple armed robberies previous to that, but they actually captured this on. We have these rooms where we've got cameras all over the districts, and we can actually pick up on them and monitor them. So they were actually able to witness and see these guys out of the car with their masks on, with they had rifles, long guns. So they had a really good description of the vehicle, and then one of the other officers then picked up on that vehicle, and that's how the chase was initiated. I did hear the sergeant came on the air, and we typically, as supervisors, the first thing we ask is how fast are they going. We try to give them more time to hopefully that the chase will wrap up. So we ask several questions: their location, their speed, how are they driving, and whatnot. But ultimately, you can only let it go so long.
Well, why is this a dispatch call rather than the officers that are giving chase? Why is it not their call?
This was a sergeant that terminated it.
Oh, okay, with a sergeant, then a supervisor. Why?
Well, so anybody can terminate, right? The officers themselves can self-terminate, and
right.
There's certain times when they're supposed to. But it's we have a paramilitary organization. If the supervisor tells you to terminate, you got to terminate. So whenever there is a chase, they immediately notify a supervisor to monitor, And once that supervisor is on the air, that supervisor is in charge. And this particular supervisor made the call and decided to terminate when he did.
Well, what's the Chicago Police Department's written policy on pursuing people on foot or by vehicle?
So, well, they're a little different because the foot pursuit just came out in the last 8 months, I think, or 9 months. But with the vehicle pursuit, there's certain times when you're absolutely not allowed to. If you're driving the paddy wagon, we're not supposed to call it that anymore.
Please.
If you're driving the squadrol.
We don't want to offend anybody.
Don't offend the Irish. Yeah. Oh God. Oh heavens. Yeah, heavens.
So if you're driving a squad roll, they don't want you chasing in that. There's if the vehicle just takes off, or if it's just wanted for theft. So if you run the plate and the vehicle's stolen, and you go to put your lights on and the car takes off, you're prohibited. You are not allowed to chase that vehicle unless you have more. Good to know. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff we're putting out there that if the bad guys are listening, they might pick up on. But if while during the chase there's if the car hits another car or sideswipes some parked cars or whatnot, there's property damage, you're supposed to terminate. If there's just a variety of minor things that you're not supposed to chase them before. But other than that, like in this case, this one was a case where there were no prohibitions in place. This was strictly the balancing test to just decide if catching them was more important than, or to weigh it with, public safety, just the conditions in the environment. I don't believe it was raining. I don't know. I'd have to look at the weather, but if it was dry, if it's dry and it's, the middle of the night and there's, not a lot of traffic, and not a lot of foot traffic out there, it seems like that would be one, but I don't know everything that was going through that sergeant's mind when he made that call.
Yeah, and police believe the same suspects robbed at least 4 separate times on Wednesday morning, including twice after supervisors called off the pursuit. So, the people who were robbed after he called off the pursuit, I think they'd like to have a conversation about public safety and the balancing test.
Right. And and that's the difficult part. And again, I'm not saying that the sergeant was right or wrong, but the climate today, the way things are, the way the department handles their support or lack of support of supervisors and officers, has made a lot of supervisors gun shy. They're risk averse. So this guy, you let it go a little bit, but they're nobody wants to end up either terminated or going to jail for right. Accidentally doing the wrong thing or making the wrong decision. So
all the incentives are to give up the chase because you can't get disciplined if you give up the chase, right?
Correct. Yep, you terminate, and it actually says it right in the policy. Nobody's going to be disciplined if you terminate the chase. Back in the I want to say it was the early 2000s. I was a task lieutenant in the 25th district, and I heard that a chase initiated, and it wasn't my officers; it was another team that was out there. And basically, they intercepted a drug transaction, and the guy had a kilo in the car, and he had a gun in the car, and took off on him. By the time I got involved and came on the air, I was a lieutenant at the time, so they got onto the Kennedy Expressway, or I-90 going west from probably about Central. Well, as it was going west, the guy started throwing cocaine out the window, and I started to debate because they were flying west on 90 and leaving the city limits. But it was July. It was 8 p.m. at night. The roads were dry. There's no cross traffic. There's no pedestrian traffic on 90. So I thought, okay, we'll let it go. So it was roughly right around Schaumburg where we started to have a scratchy radio. So then that's when I decided to terminate. Well, by the time I did terminate at that point, the officers had already been past that, and they lost communication. But they ended up catching the guy in Elgin. Of course, the guy tried to run one of them over, so they ended up shooting him. He survived. He got 7 years in prison. But it was they tried to suspend me for 2 weeks because of that. Fortunate for me, COPA took 9 years to wrap up their investigation.
What?
9 years.
A lifetime.
9 years it took them to wrap up that investigation, and so I ended up just getting a reprimand. But, it's always a balancing test. You got to figure out what's right, wrong. Another interesting thing with that, when I was out there, I had to call the Cook County State's Attorney's Office because that's where the chase started and all the cocaine was recovered. And they were real reluctant to do anything, and they said they wanted to continue the investigation. When I called, I think it was in Elgin, right there on 90, which switches over. I'm not sure if it's Kane County or McHenry County. But when I called that state's attorney, it's the middle of the night. They put me through to him. I tell him what I got, and he's like, charges approved. I said, do you want any paperwork or anything? He's like, I'll send it in the morning. So just the difference in the state's attorney's office is everything.
Yeah. By the way, there is no pedestrian traffic on 90 on the Kennedy usually, except when Father Flagler is shutting it down. So sometimes there is pedestrian traffic, and police have to be noticed about that.
Yeah, that's usually 94.
Yeah.
All right. Well, John, last time we had you on was back in July when that Wicker Park kitten killer was had just turned himself in. What's the latest with him, and is he on electronic monitoring at home?
Yeah, so he's out on electronic monitoring at home with his parents. We just had court a few days ago.
Oh, he needs to be supervised. What he did to those cats,
how old is he?
It's disgusting.
23.
23.
Uh-huh.
And he's a good-looking guy, and you would never think that he would kill 4 tabby cats and then name them Shelby.
Some would say Ted Bundy was also good-looking. I don't know. But, so the case has been transferred to Skokie. So now we're following it from there. The next court date is October 4th, but that's just for discovery, so not a whole lot will go on. But we posted up on our Garrido Stray Rescue Foundation Facebook page. We'll give updates. And we had about 25 people show up in court, and there was another 20 people that were on Zoom. So they know there's a lot of eyes on this, so they're really going to make sure that they cross their T's.
Is he getting help, though? I mean, it was psychotic.
Well, we don't know what they're doing, but he did come into court with a smirk on his face, laughing and joking with his parents as he walked in. So but we had to do everything we could to keep our volunteers from reacting and not saying anything.
That is so sick. And his parents were in on, like, they were joking around with him or laughing?
Well, we don't know what they were talking about before they walked in the door, but obviously they weren't overly concerned about
God, that makes me think that they're not taking this seriously.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully, hopefully he gets the maximum of whatever they can give him, and they do it per cat, so that way it gives him some more time put away.
He better hope that Amy Jacobson is not on that jury.
I want to be on that jury.
What's your while we have you, I assume you had some interactions with them during your time on the force. What is your optimism level about the new police chief, Larry Snelling?
So Larry is a really nice guy. He was in the academy for a long time as an instructor and then as a supervisor. So a lot of the officers, especially the younger officers coming through the department, know him and like him and respect him. He's a good guy. It's really going to come down to is the mayor are we going to be run from the 5th floor, or are they going to let the police be the police and run the police department? And I'm also curious to see who his number 2 is, who he picks for that first deputy spot. That'll also give us an indication. But I'm hopeful. Every single time there's a change, we're always hopeful, and then usually everything ends up, especially because so many times, well, at least with Rom especially, and with Lightfoot, they micromanage the police department. And when you try to run law enforcement politically, it never works out.
Well,
right.
He did kind of stand up to Brandon Johnson because Brandon Johnson wants social workers to respond to domestics, and he said, "No, our SWAT team does a really good job, and we should keep that program in place."
Yeah. So again, if he's allowed to run the department, I think he'll do a good job.
John Garrido, former Chicago Police Lieutenant, 16th District, and the president of the Garrido Stray Rescue Foundation, GarridoStrayRescue.org. John, thanks as always.
Hey, thanks for having the show.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, folks. Sebastian Gorka here. Are you worried about investing in the stock market, especially with Joe Biden in office? Do you really trust this economy? What if you could invest in a secure, collateralized portfolio with a high fixed rate of return that's not correlated to the stock market or the Fed? A portfolio where you'll know what each monthly statement will look like with no surprises. Your interest is compounded